What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Adventure Outpost. In today's adventure, we are diving deep into 2021 movies. It is July, so that means we are officially halfway through the year, and I thought it would be a fun idea to look back and see just where all the movies released so far have ranked in my personal rankings. I've seen pretty much every movie that could have been released so far this year in a wide release, be it movie theaters, streaming, whatever have you. I've seen the large majority of them. So, in today's video, we're going to break them down and we're going to rank them. So stay tuned. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these movies, maybe the top 10, but other than that, we're going to shoot through these as quick as possible because I don't want this to be a crazy long video because I just tallied it up and I've pretty much seen 68 movies so far for the year. So, we definitely want to plow through those very quickly. So starting us off at the bottom of the list is the movie Bliss, starring Owen Wilson and Salma Hayek. It is a science fiction movie that has Owen Wilson questioning his own sanity and trying to figure out what's real or not in his life. It has an interesting concept, but it is absolutely terrible. Owen Wilson and Salma Hayek are okay in it. Acting-wise, is probably the best thing you could say about the movie, but other than that, it is an absolute dumpster fire. Things Heard and Seen is a psychological thriller starring Amanda Seyfried, and it is garbage. It is a wonder that they even managed to get her for this movie because she is so much better than this movie. It is schlock all the way through. It's not fun. It is just torturous to watch. And by the time it gets to the end where the whole curtain is pulled apart and you understand everything that's went on, you're just left being like, are you fucking kidding me? Thunder Force is a movie about, I think it was a meteorite that causes some people to become superpowered, but they're all super villains. Like, it was only terrible people that became super abilities, and it follows Octavia Spencer and Melissa McCarthy as they work to gain superhero abilities and take on these villains. It's a movie that on paper sounds like it should be a slam dunk and a win, but it is absolutely torturous. Melissa McCarthy is very hit or miss for people. For me, I really can't stand her. Her movies are just brutal, and this one might be the worst one of the bunch. Like, she should not be, and I don't know if it's her. I think it's just when she's in movies directed and written by her husband, that guy is not a good writer-director. This movie is an absolute misfire, save for one or two really funny scenes, but that's all thanks to Jason Bateman, because Bateman's the man. The U.S. vs. Billie Holiday is a movie about Billie Holiday and her tumultuous life. It's a movie that I didn't expect to be this low. I was actually super excited to see it, especially once I saw Andra Day got nominated for it. But she is actually the only decent part about this movie is her performance. This movie is rough. It's just shot lazily. It's edited together just very weird. It doesn't flow. There's no good plot structure to it. It's just kind of one of those movies where this scene happens, and then 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 it's over. And you're like, okay. The World to Come is a movie about two women who begin a torrid love affair in the 1800s, and I never thought a movie about lesbians could be so boring. But in all seriousness, this movie is, it's very slow-paced. I can see why some people would like it. The production value is really good. And the performances are by Vanessa Kirby and the girl from Alien Covenant, one of those. I can't think of her name. Kate something. They're really good. But other than that, it's a very boring and slow-moving movie, and it just wasn't for me. It put me to sleep, and I was constantly checking my phone waiting for it to be over. Locked Down is the movie that I never wanted to happen. I would love for us to collectively, in our movie making, pretend like COVID never happened. I don't want to see movies about COVID. I don't want you to make love stories about COVID, action movies about COVID, drama movies about COVID. I don't want any of it. Just forget it happened. Don't inject it into our movies. I want to escape. I don't want to be reminded about COVID. And Lockdown is a movie very much out to remind you of how shitty life was last year while trying to make it an action thriller, and it fails miserably. The performances are okay. Chiwetel Ejiofor and Anne Hathaway do their best with what they have. but it is just a very boring movie, and I just didn't enjoy it. False Positive might be the weirdest movie on this list. It's very much similar to the structure of The U.S. vs. Billie Holiday, where it's just like, this scene happens, then this scene happens, then this scene happens, and then it's over. Except this one has a lot of very weird and nonsensical scenes that might be entertaining while you're watching it, well, by the time it ends, you're just like, I can't believe I wasted my time watching that. And it's a shame because good actors in it. Justin Theroux, Pierce Brosnan, Alana Glazer. I don't know if I pronounced that incorrectly. If I did, my bad. But it's a very weird and stupid movie. Deadly Illusions is pretty much just like False Positive, in that it is an absolutely nonsensical movie that is trying to throw you for a loop with weird mysteries and non-reliable characters, and it fails miserably. It's just uninteresting. It's not fun. It's just weird, and you're just wondering what happens. Why, like, you're stuck watching it because, of course, you need to know what happens at the end. And then you see what happens at the end, and you're like, that was the dumbest shit I ever watched. Like, why did I sit through that? And Deadly Illusions is one of those. It honestly might be, even though I put it above some of these other movies, it honestly might be one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Just terrible. Netflix, you need to, like, really think about what you're buying before you buy it. Quality is better than quantity. Netflix strikes again with the movie Outside the Wire. It took me 2 tries to watch this movie because the first time I fell asleep because it was so boring. And that's not something you want in an action movie, especially a sci-fi action movie. I love sci-fi, so usually I'm always on board for a sci-fi movie, regardless of if it's good or not. But this is one of those ones that was just completely missed the mark. And it's a shame, because I love Anthony Mackie. I really wanted this movie to be good. It looked cool, and it wasn't. Zola is another movie absolutely nobody asked for. You can just save your time and read the Twitter thread, and you can then just move on with your life and save yourself 81 minutes. And this is another movie very much like The World to Come, where a movie about this subject matter should not be this boring. It's a movie about strippers getting in way over their head. And if somebody had said that to me, I would be like, sign me the fuck up. Let's see that movie. And it is very, very boring. It's 81 minutes, and I swear to God, like at least 35% of the movie is just driving shots. Just shots of them driving around Miami in between Johns. It is just fucking stupid. And that moves us out of the 1-star movies and now into the 2-star movies, where we're just hitting mediocrity. Movies that could have been better if they were worked better, and then some that were just like, nah, okay, I saw that, never need to see it again. And we start that with Tom and Jerry. It's a movie that it's inoffensive. I can see why they made it. I'm sure it was perfectly fine and fun for kids when they watched it. It has a couple of alright bits in it. The biggest disservice is that it's not really a Tom and Jerry movie, and I don't think you can really make a good Tom and Jerry movie these days because everyone is very conscious of what you can get away with, of what they'll allow you to get away with. Because you look at old Tom and Jerry cartoons, and those things were fucking insane. Like, they were like legit trying to murder each other in horrific ways. And in this one, it's all just kind of like slapstick, family-friendly, like gooey shenanigans. It's just not very fun. And the human characters are all like really stupid. There's not really much fun to be had of it. It's just one of those movies that you'll forget that you even saw it by the end of the year. You'll be like looking back at the year and be like, oh shit, yeah, we saw Tom and Jerry in February. You go, what the fuck? Yes Day is a dumb comedy about family, and Jennifer Garner and I think Edgar Ramirez are a husband and wife, and they decide to give their kids a yes day, which is a day where they have to say yes to anything that the kids want to do. And it's a fine family-friendly movie. Like, you could tell that they were probably trying to ape some of the charm and everything from Instant Family, but it just doesn't hit any of those good marks. And I really only watched this movie because when we had gone to California to go to Six Flags Magic Mountain 2 days before we were going to be there, one of the rides we wanted to go on was actually closed because they were filming scenes from this movie. So naturally, my dumbass watched it just to see that 30-second clip of them riding the roller coaster. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie 3, that's what I'm calling it because I can't fucking remember what the subtitle is. I think it's Sponge Out of Water, but I don't know. I don't really care to look it up. I just wrote down SpongeBob here. It's a movie that it's serviceable, but it really shows that the gas is out of the tank on this franchise, and they really need to just let it coast. It's a shame that now that the creator of that show died, that they're just pumping out spin-off after spin-off now with, Camp Coral, and then I think they're doing like a Patrick one, and it's just like, you can tell that the charm of SpongeBob is missing without him, and it's one of those things that it's very much the lifeblood of the creator, and now that he's gone, they should really just do him a kindness and just stop making new SpongeBob stuff. Coming to America is the sequel to the cult classic Coming to America, starring Eddie Murphy. It's a movie kind of like Tom and Jerry, in that you can't really get away with the stuff that you got in the originals today. It's a whole new world, and most people don't have the balls to do what they did back then, for fear of the vitriol that will spew on the internet and from all these PC clowns out there today. And I get it, it's just the way the world is right now. But Coming to America is a movie that very much doesn't need to exist. It has none of the sharp, biting humor of the first movie. It's just tired. Everybody looks tired in it. Like, James Earl Jones just looks exhausted. Between that and then The Lion King, like, just let that dude retire. Like, just let him enjoy his late years, because he looks exhausted in everything. It's the only person who looks like he's having any fun and makes his scenes any fun is Wesley Snipes. But other than that, everything else about this movie is just deflating. Infinite is a movie where Mark Wahlberg learns that he is a infinite, which is somebody that is just constantly reborn throughout life, and in this complete struggle with an evil race of people that want to destroy the world and end it. It's schlock. It's absolute stupidity. It makes no sense. It needed a better writer. Absolutely. It needed an actor who actually cares to try, because Mark Wahlberg is sleepwalking his way through this. He is so freaking bad in this movie. It is horrible to watch. The only person that made this movie worth watching is Chiwetel Ejiofor, who is absolutely hamming the shit out of that movie. Like, he knew exactly what he was in, and he was just going to go balls to the walls insane with it. And it's a shame, because this movie, with the right writer and a better lead, could have been decent. Like, they could have made a good movie in there. And it's a shame, because Antoine Fuqua is the director, and he's made some really good movies, and it's just a shame that this one totally missed the mark. This is also the first movie to show up in this list of a bunch of movies from 2021 that has some of the worst CGI that I've ever seen in a movie. It's insane that we can get this far, that we're in 2021, and CGI can still look this terrible. Like, movies like Terminator 2, which came out in 1991, is absolutely gorgeous, and their special effects hold up to this day better than some of the special effects that you see being put out today. And I can't understand why that is. Like, is it money? Is it that just, like, some special effects companies just don't do as good a work as others? Like, I need these answers. We should not be seeing shitty special effects like we see in Infinite in 2021. Spiral is the gajillionth Saw movie to be released. It has its moments. Like, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's probably one of the worst Saw movies I've ever seen. But I don't think you can hold me up to that, because I really only remember the first two Saws. All the other ones I only saw once in theaters and then never bothered to watch again, because I'm never a fan of that franchise. And Spiral continues to prove why I'm not a fan of that franchise, with just shoddy writing, a twist that you can see coming from a mile away that's also just lazy and not fun. The movie ends just on such a weird note. Like, it's just bad. Samuel L. Jackson completely wasted in it. I mean, like, he'll be fine, because, like, he shows up in a gajillion movies a year anyway, so he won't lose any work. But, like, Chris Rock is not a good serious actor. And it's a shame to say, because I love Chris Rock. He's really funny. He's great in comedy movies. He's great in stand-up, but I just don't think serious is the spot for him, because this movie, torture. Boogie is a story about a young Asian man trying to balance basketball and his family responsibilities and the notion of Asian culture and all that good stuff. It's a fine movie. It could have been better. It has some decent scenes in it. The drama is all right. The main guy, I don't know what his name was. I think this is like one of the first big movies he's ever been in, but he does fine in the role. And I mean, I like sports movies, so this one was kind of inoffensive to me. It's another one of those movies that, like, at the end of the year when I'm tallying these things up, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's a movie I saw this year. The Woman in the Window is a movie that's held together completely by Amy Adams' over-the-top performance. Everything else in this movie is just B movie through and through. And it's a shame because I really liked the book and I was really looking forward to the movie when I saw the first trailer, especially considering the cast that was in it. It was like you got Gary Oldman, Julianne Moore, Brian Tyree Henry, new Captain America, Kurt Russell's son, Wyatt Russell. There you go. They had all the ingredients, but it just fell flat. Just one of those. It was one of those movies where, like, as you're watching it, you really get the sense that you were like, oh, like, as a book, it works because you're picturing everything in your head. But as a movie, when you're seeing it all play out, it's kind of stupid. The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard is the second Samuel L. Jackson movie to show up on this list. It is pretty terrible, with the exception of a very wild Selma Hayek performance. She's the only one having any fun in this movie. There's a few funny bits that Ryan Reynolds gets, but what really ruined this movie for me is very much like some other movies on this list. The CGI is absolutely atrocious in some scenes. Like, it just looks horrific, and there's no excuse for shitty CGI in this day and age. I really hated the joke that Morgan Freeman was Ryan Reynolds' dad, only because they have the fight scene at the end of the movie, and it's just so apparent that it's not Morgan Freeman, and like the way they cut it just looks fucking terrible. It was just really dumb joke, and the action was just all over the place. Samuel L. Jackson, he was fine as always. Ryan Reynolds even's not terrible in it, like he does his Ryan Reynolds thing. It's a movie that just didn't need to exist, and it shows on every frame that this movie is just lazy to the core. It was one of those ones where they were like, hey, the first one made money, so we might as well make a second one. Do we have a plot for the second one? Fuck no, who cares? Just make one, people will go see it. Awake is the story of, I think it's a satellite that crashes or something. I don't know, they don't really go over it so well. They leave it kind of a bit of ambiguous, unless I've just forgotten as much as I could about this movie. But it basically boils down to something happens on the planet that now nobody can sleep. So everyone's starting to go crazy, and they're losing their minds, and chaos is breaking out. And we follow this one woman who has a daughter that can't sleep. And so people are freaking out. They want to sacrifice her to, like, appease the gods and all this. So she's kind of got to, like, take care of her kid and get her to a safe place where no one can harm her. And along the way, you peel back some layers and you find out a little bit more about what's going on and how it's going to, like, unfold. It's a movie that has a really good concept, but terrible execution. It should have been a lot better than it was. I feel like it needed a little more. It was a little too short. I feel like it needed a completely different second act. Like, I liked the beginning. The beginning had me. I was in. The whole first act I was in. And then once she got her daughter away from the religious freaks and on the move to a compound where they would be safe, I don't know why I did it for a compound. That was not right. Safe was right. Compound was not. But it doesn't matter, because it's a movie that, very much like my terrible usage of parentheses, this movie was also a terrible usage of sci-fi. The Ice Road is a movie that proves that Liam Neeson, it is time to hang up the action boots, go back to dramas, or even just retire, man. You've given everything. You got nothing left to prove, my man. Like, you did Schindler's List, you did Rob Roy, you did so many classics. You can go enjoy, man. Go enjoy your time off now. You did it. You don't need to do it anymore. This movie is just pure stupidity. It has some decent action scenes towards the end, but the plot is absolutely stupid bananas. Like a mine blows up a portion of it, and miners get stuck, but they can't fly in the drill that they need because it's too heavy. So they need to equip it onto trucks, and they need to send truckers through the ice road. The only problem is it's after the season, so the ice road is starting to melt. So it's a very dangerous job. And, you get Liam Neeson, you get Lawrence Fishburne, and they amass a team, and they're going to do it. But what they don't know is that somebody on their team is actually working for the corporation that caused the explosion, and they want them to sabotage the truck so that they don't get there. It's fucking stupid. F9 may be the dumbest fucking movie released this year. I don't even really want to talk about it. I hate this movie. I hated every second of this movie. It needed more John Cena. It needs less of Vin Diesel trying to seriously act. And it needs to stop being so fucking silly stupid. It was fun in the beginning, but we asked for too much. We enjoyed too much of Fast 5 and Fast 6's silly antics, and now they're just too overboard. It's gone too far, and we need to stop it. They need to be stopped. Voyagers is the story of a group of kids that were bred specifically for space flight to a new planet to colonize it so that the people of Earth will have an exit strategy to get off as Earth is dying. And it follows these group of kids as they get their first taste of adulthood and serious nature and their emotions and everything. It's all right. It's got some decent moments and some good tense scenes. But for the most part, it's kind of silly. It's the same as a lot of these movies. It's hard to group a lot of these movies because a lot of them are the same, where they're like inoffensible. They're just movies you watch, and then you're like, oh yeah, that was a movie I saw. So like, it's not the worst movie I saw, but it's nowhere near anything great. The Marksman is the second Liam Neeson movie to show up on this list, and it's a bit better than The Ice Road. Actually, in comparison to The Ice Road, it's fucking Oscar worthy. But it's a fine action thriller. It follows Liam Neeson as he helps a kid and his mom who have crossed over the border illegally. He tries to help them get to safety away from these drug kingpins that, for whatever reason, are trying to kill her and her son. I think it's because her husband or something was involved in some shady business. So they got to go on the run and they got to get out of the country because, down there, they'll kill everybody. So it follows Liam Neeson trying to protect this kid and the wife and get them somewhere safely. It has its moments. It's decent. It's a solid little thriller. You could do worse if you were going to watch a movie on like a Saturday night, date night. So, not the worst movie you could watch. The Little Things, much like Woman in the Window, is a movie that is held together completely by Jared Leto's bonkers performance. He's the only one injecting any sort of energy into that movie. Denzel Washington just looks exhausted. I don't want to say I hate Rami Malek, but I don't really like his acting style. In every single movie of his that you see, he tends to just be very monotone. Like he just always, it never sounds like he's registering any type of emotion or anything. He's always just like a straight line all the way through. And it feels like to me, like after he did Mr. Robot, where like that was the first thing that everyone raved about him and it kind of made him on the map, he was just like, I'm just going to copy that for fucking everything now. And it's just not my thing. He just doesn't, it doesn't feel like he has range to me. And I could be wrong. Other people could enjoy it, and all more power to you. But for me, he just doesn't do it for me. So thank God for Jared Leto going balls to the walls in this movie to inject some much needed energy into it. Other than that, it's a fine little detective thriller. It's slow paced. So you gotta be, if you don't like slow paced movies, you should skip this one. We kick off our 3-star movies with one of the most silly bonkers movies I've ever seen in my life. And that's America the Motion Picture. This movie is absolute stupidity. And I loved it. It's one of those movies that it's the perfect just turn your brain off and just enjoy it for like an hour and a half. So like I really liked it in that regard because sometimes you just like to just turn your brain off. You just want to watch something that you don't have to think about. You don't have to really like think deep into it. You can just enjoy. And this is one of those movies because it has so much dumb shit in it, but it's dumb shit that will crack you up. Like for every joke that doesn't land, there's like 2 or 3 more that will land that are really silly and funny. And I love that they, in no way, shape, or form, even bother to like actually care about how history happened. This is very much revisionist. I don't even know if it's revisionist. It's just completely fictional history. And it's hilarious. So if you're looking for a movie to just turn your brain off and enjoy, America the Motion Picture is the one for you. Cherry stars Tom Holland in a pretty sweet drama movie following him when he's back from the war. Honestly, I've watched it so long ago, I can't really tell you much about it other than Tom Holland was in it. It was directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, and I enjoyed it. He's a really good actor. I like Tom Holland a lot. I'm really glad that he's branching out from just like Marvel stuff and that we're going to get he's doing these type of different movies. Like Cherry is a movie I didn't expect him to be in after being cast as Spider-Man. So I really like the way that he's choosing his movies right now. And I'm really looking forward to whatever the next thing that he does outside of Spider-Man. The Dig is another movie that I saw that I can't tell you much about. It stars Ralph Fiennes as he works for like the museum, I think it is, and they're doing a historical dig on a woman's site where they think they're going to find some piece of ancient history, and they do, and then it follows him as he grows to learn and befriend the family whose land that they're digging on. It was a decent little drama. I enjoyed it. It wasn't, movies like that have a tendency to be slow paced and kind of torturous to get through at times, but this one wasn't really like that. It was smooth. It went by like decently quick. It felt about how that runtime should feel, and it was an enjoyable movie. I like Ralph Fiennes. Really, I can watch him really in anything, so I was on board with this movie from the get-go. Moxie is a movie directed by Amy Poehler. She also stars in it as the mother of a teen who creates a zine that she anonymously posts in school to try and like shake up the status quo. It's very much just a coming-of-age teen comedy. It's a decent one. It has its moments. I enjoyed it. It was cute. It's a little heavy-handed and a little too on the nose at times, but for the most part, it is a fun, enjoyable movie that you could definitely do worse with. It's one of the better Netflix ones that they've put out this year, we'll say that. Plan B is a teen comedy about a girl who has sex and the next day discovers that the condom was still inside of her, so she needs to find a way to get the Plan B pill. And her friend go on a crazy adventure to try and get it because, as most people know, you have to be a certain age to get the Plan B pill. So they go on an adventure to try and get that Plan B pill. It's a funny movie. This one is a little bit more heavy-handed and on the nose than Unpregnant was, that came out at the end of 2020. That's kind of like this movie, but this one had some really funny scenes in it that I really enjoyed, and I liked the chemistry between the two leads, and the party scene in the beginning of the movie was a big hit for me. So I really enjoyed. It hit a lot of its marks for me. So it was a solid teen comedy that you should definitely check out if you enjoy teen comedies. Nobody is an action movie starring Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, and it sees him pretty much doing John Wick shit. It's a movie that's pretty much like, it should just be called John Wick spinoff. But even though it is pretty much just like it just moves the pieces around. So it's not like completely aping John Wick. But I mean, it's made from the guys who made John Wick, so you would imagine like their action is going to be similar when they make different movies. But that doesn't detract it from being an enjoyable movie. Bob Odenkirk, it's crazy how good he is in this movie as an action star. Christopher Lloyd as his dad also gets to throw in some crazy shots in that movie, which is hilarious to watch. And RZA's in it too, so it all builds to like a really cool ending finale. So I pretty much enjoyed the movie mostly for that ending finale, and for there's a scene on a bus that is a really awesome action fight scene. It totally made the movie worth it for me. Like I saw that scene and I looked over at my girlfriend. I was like, even if the rest of the movie is crap, like this movie was good just for that scene alone. To All the Boys 3, that's what I'm calling it because again I don't remember what the subtitle is of it, is the final trilogy in that film series. My girlfriend made me watch all three of them. They're all right. They're decent romantic comedies. This one was better than the second one. Not as good as the first one for me. The first one was still my favorite. But this one was a cute romantic comedy that definitely redeemed that franchise and ended on a good note. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It's one of those movies again that it'll be like, oh yeah, I saw that movie. But for people like my girlfriend and everyone who love those types of movies, like it's definitely a good movie up your alley to check out. Finish him. Mortal Kombat is an action movie that, I mean, I don't really need to explain much. If you saw Mortal Kombat, you know. If you don't know about Mortal Kombat, then it's not the movie for you. It's fine. The action scenes are really awesome in it. The fight scenes are really good. The like brutality, finish him scenes at the end are really awesome. They have some really good ones. My biggest problem with this movie that ruins it for me is the fact that it's a movie about Mortal Kombat and it's called Mortal Kombat, and Mortal Kombat is a tournament that they all enter, but there is no Mortal Kombat. Like the whole movie, they're training for it, and then it never happens. And that's just lazy screenwriting. Godzilla vs. Kong is a movie very much like Mortal Kombat. Its action scenes are incredible. They look really good. The movie is shot wonderfully, but everything else is absolute stupidity. The whole subplot with Millie Bobby Brown and Brian Tyree Henry is garbage. I hated every second of it, and you could cut that entire shit out of the movie, and it wouldn't change a fucking thing. Like, I know that they have at the end that they kind of like fucking screw over Mechagodzilla, but you honestly could have got rid of them and used anybody else for that, and it would have not changed a fucking thing. They were the worst part about it, and the idea that they would make a movie in this day and age about conspiracy theorists being right is just such a stupidly dangerous game to play. Those Who Wish Me Dead is a movie about Angelina Jolie, and she is a firefighter in a sense. I don't know exactly what the term they use to call what she does, because I don't think it's exactly firefighting, but she watches like in a tower for fires. She ends up getting in over her head when she has to protect a kid who is being hunted by assassins because he knows something that he shouldn't. And it's a movie that should be a lot better than it is. I was super excited to see this movie because it's written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, who is one of my favorite writer-directors. He has made some of my favorite movies, and this one just really shits the bed. It should be a lot more thrilling and action-packed and smarter than it is. But it just ends up being lazy. And the reason it's still this high is because it's shot very well, and it still has some good performances and entertaining moments. So like I was still entertained by it, and I didn't hate it, but it was a movie that when it ended, it was one that I was like, for the caliber of writer-director that Taylor Sheridan is, this movie should have been a lot better. The White Tiger is about a poor Indian man who dreams of living a high life, and he gets a job as a servant to a high-ranking, powerful dude who he ends up driving his son around. And things get way too complicated when it turns out that the son and his girlfriend drunkenly run over and kill a person, and they try to use the driver to shift the blame to. It's a really dark movie, but I like it a lot. It's a really good crime thriller from a type of character that you don't normally get. I like that we got to see some very different perspectives, that it takes place all in India, and it follows a type of hero that we don't normally see in Western films. Everyone tends to be white Anglo-Saxon heroes. So it was nice to get a really cool dark crime thriller from a different part of the world. Flora and Ulysses is an adorable little Disney movie that popped up that is about a little girl who befriends a squirrel who she believes is a superhero. It's very silly. It's very 90s reminiscent, and that it's just really goofy. And it's just a fun little enjoyable time. Ben Schwartz is in it. I think Allison Hannigan is the mom in it. I don't remember though, because that movie came out all the way back in February. But it's an adorable little kids movie that kids will certainly enjoy. They will eat that movie up. Adults won't get as much mileage out of it, but it's not the worst thing that they'll have to sit through for their children. Chaos Walking is a movie that's had setback after setback. It's a movie I did never actually think would end up coming out, but here it is. It finally came out, and it's all right. It's got a decent enough concept. Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley are pretty solid in it. They bring out some good mileage from the movie. It's sci-fi is okay. Like I like the idea that like the men's thoughts like always like permeate out of their minds, so like they can't really keep any internal thoughts. So that's like a cool concept to play with. I just feel like they probably could have gone a little bit more with it. Bad Trip stars Eric Andre doing his Eric Andre shtick. And it is going to be hilarious for people that like Eric Andre and probably not so great for people that don't. I, however, love Eric Andre, and so this movie I get a lot of mileage out of. It's pretty much just like another take on Jackass, where they're pulling pranks on people that have no idea what's going on. Although in this one, it's more Eric Andre pulling shit on himself to then get reactions from people around him. It gets a lot of fun out of it. I love Little Ray Howard. It's a shame that he doesn't seem as up to snuff as Eric Andre and other people in this movie when it comes to stunts. So he's kind of the weak link in the chain, but he's still funny as always. And Tiffany Haddish, who I normally don't really like in movies, is also really good in this one. And I think she takes to going balls to the walls in this movie so sublimely. She definitely helps make the movie really good. It has some really funny pranks that they pull on people. Cruella is the latest Disney movie that nobody asked for. It is a live action retelling of Cruella and seeing her origin story. It's I don't really know what to say about it. There's a review on my channel if you want to go back and find it. You can get more in-depth thoughts about this movie. It's fine. Like I didn't hate it, but like I would be totally okay if it didn't exist. Good on Paper is the story of a comedian who meets the man of her dreams, and he turns out to be too good to be true. And as their relationship develops, she learns that pretty much his entire personality is a complete lie, and she falls down the rabbit hole in trying to figure out just how far his deception goes. It's a really good, funny comedy with some dark moments. I like the comedian. I forget what her name is. It's like Ela Schlesinger, I think, but I could be completely butchering that name. So if I did, my apologies. But it's a really funny movie that I didn't expect to be that great, but it definitely had some good mileage out of it. Fatherhood is the story of Kevin Hart, who has to raise his daughter as a single dad after his wife dies a day after giving birth to their daughter. It's a movie that I really did not expect to see Kevin Hart in, and it's probably his best performance. It's probably not his best movie of being Kevin Hart, but it's definitely his best performance that he's done in a movie. He really, really sells that shit. Like he's really freaking good in this movie. Peter Rabbit 2 is the sequel to Peter Rabbit, a movie that I never thought would be any good, a movie that I never thought would get a franchise, but here we are. I loved the first Peter Rabbit. I don't like this one as much as the first one, but I still really enjoyed it. I love the meta humor in it, and Rose Byrne and Domhnall Gleeson are really good in it. The slapstick, I love slapstick comedy, so anytime a movie utilizes slapstick comedy, I'm always about it. And this has a lot of really funny scenes. Just the whole idea that they're trying to rob a farmer's market is the funniest shit ever to me. The Map of Tiny Pretty Things is a story about two people stuck in a time loop and their experiences as they grow together and try to find their way out of it. Much like Palm Springs last year, this movie is not as funny as Palm Springs. Palm Springs definitely gets a lot more darker and funnier with its complex themes in its story. But this one is still good. This one's more of a much more typical romantic comedy that you would expect, but with a sci-fi twist. Penguin Bloom is the story of Naomi Watts after a tragic accident leaves her handicapped. She is wasting away, mad at the world, and it follows her as she tries to come back from the brink of that accident and learn to appreciate her life now, regardless of her injury. And something that helps her through that is them befriending a bird that they named Penguin, their whole family. This is a movie much like Fatherhood that is super fucking depressing, but yet also warm-hearted at the same time. It's weird how it balances that line of being like watching her try and do things now that she's handicapped, and you're like, this is horrific to watch. This is so sad. But yet it turns it around into this really warm-hearted movie by the end where she finally accepts what has happened to her and learns how to move forward using that handicap and not let it be a crutch and still live her life to the degree that she did beforehand. Concrete Cowboy is the story of a boy who must go live with his estranged father and reconnect with him in Philly, and his father hangs out with a bunch of other people that just ride horses around town and take care of a stable and teach people to ride horses and take care of horses and all that stuff. It's a really good movie, and it was very interesting. I love movies that are like based on true stories, but they don't need to like follow the true story, but it makes you more interested to go learn about that period of history. And so the idea that there was this thing going on in Philadelphia where these people had these stables and it was like a community and they were using it to teach and show growth and help people back from the brink it was a really, really interesting movie. I liked it a lot. Idris Elba is phenomenal as always. I love everything he is in, and I will always watch everything that he chooses to be in. Without Remorse stars Michael B. Jordan as an operative who gets assassinated after a mission, but ends up surviving. His family, however, doesn't, and so he goes on a hell-bent revenge spree to get back at the people who took out his family. It's very typical of what you would expect from an action movie. Its story is not so great, but the action scenes in it really make the movie what it is. And also Michael B. Jordan's performance. He's a really good actor. I enjoy watching him in everything. He has a couple of really good scenes in it, like when he puts a car on fire and then gets inside the car to interrogate someone. It was a really sick scene. And then the whole ending scene in Russia is also fucking balls to the walls and shot really well. So it was a very fun action movie, and even though the story was kind of very basic, I like that I'm okay with them using this as a setup to then make much crazier movies. Like I really hope that they tie in this Tom Clancy franchise to Jack Ryan, because that would be freaking insane if we can get Michael B. Jordan and John Krasinski in a movie together. I would fucking love that. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, is the story of the investigators. I can't think of their fucking names at that moment. The Warrens. That's what it is. Yes, it's when the Warrens investigate a man who claims to have been possessed by a demon and killed somebody and is now on trial for that murder. It's easily the least scary of the three movies, but it still gets a lot of mileage out of it. I just love watching Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson in these roles. I think they have really good chemistry. I think they work really well together. So I really enjoyed the movie, regardless of the fact that it still didn't hold up par to the other two. Army of the Dead sees my boy Dave Bautista getting together a group of mercenaries to head into zombie-infested Las Vegas so that they can rob a casino and make off with millions of dollars. It is balls to the walls insanity. It is hilarious. It is dumb. It is silly. It is fun. It's everything that you want a summer blockbuster to be. I honestly almost wish they released it later than May. Like this should have been like a late June, early July movie, just because I think with the hot summer heat, it really summer movie like so those types of movies are just so good for a summer setting where like you're coming home from the beach and you're like, bam, like we're gonna throw Army of the Dead on. We now move on to our 4-star movies, and spoiler alert, our 4-star movies are going to take us to number 1. I have yet to give a movie from 2021 5 stars. So for the rest of these rankings, they will be all 4-star movies. And we start with the movie Stowaway. It came out on Netflix with Anna Kendrick and other people. The dude from Lost, the Asian guy from Lost, Daniel Day Kim, I think his name is, and another woman who's not Allison Janney, but I always get her and Allison Janney mixed up. Toni Collette. That's her fucking name. That's right. So Stowaway is the story of these 3 astronauts who are on a 4 or 5 year, however long mission to Mars to study and cultivate and hope that they could one day move people over to Mars. And they end up having a stowaway on board. And the problem with having the stowaway on board is that the spacecraft was only created so that it can hold those 3 people. So now that the 4th person is on there, it is a race against time for them to try and find a way for all 4 of them to cohabitate on this spacecraft before they all lose oxygen. So it's a very tense thriller. It has some really good tense scenes. There is a scene towards the end of the movie where they have to leave the spacecraft and travel along it to try and get to these reserve oxygen pads, and it is so freaking tense. It is a really good movie. Ends a little abruptly. I feel like it could have had a little bit more at the end, but it was still a really good science fiction space movie for me. That was a very realistic approach of that scenario. Monster is the story of a young black teen who is on trial for the murder of a convenience store owner when he is accused of helping a group of thugs rob the convenience store. This movie is a really dark and tense look at our criminal justice system and black youth and just all of those things. It's a very timely movie for what's going on right now. The performances are really freaking good in it. It has a surprise turn from John David Washington, Denzel Washington's son. I feel like this movie had to have been made a few years ago, like before he did Tenet and Black Klansman. Oh, and you're out of here. She's gone. So this was definitely a movie like he had to have made before he got big and then just suddenly came out afterwards. But he's really good as like one of the like really thug criminal guys that's on trial. The main kid who is trying to navigate this life and hopefully get out of this, who is a good kid that's just it was at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's a really good, tense, thrilling movie, and I loved every second of it. Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man sees Jason Statham doing Jason Statham shit. This is a really solid action movie. I like this movie a lot. In the beginning, I thought it was just going to be a little cheesy, and then when it started playing around with the timeline, I really got into it. I like movies that are very nonlinear, and this movie was one of those. Scott Eastwood is really good as one of the like deranged criminals that Jason Statham ends up getting involved with and having to hunt down. It's just a really solid action movie that Guy Ritchie is known for. I really like his style and approach to how he makes movies. I'm certainly looking forward to his next outing, as long as it's not the sequel to Aladdin. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is probably one of the best animated movies that your kids can make you watch this year. It tells the story of the Mitchells and their daughter who is going off to college, and the dad who wants to hang on to his little girl decides to make it a road trip. And while they're on the road trip, a company who has created sentient robots to take over as your iPhones ends up trying to take over the world and take out all humans. It's really silly. It's a lot of fun. It has a lot of really good jokes. The animation looks amazing. All of the actors doing the voice casts are so much fun. Everyone is just bringing their A game in this movie. And this one was just knock it out of the park. It's one of my favorite animated movies that I've seen lately. Land is a movie that I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did. It follows Robin Wright as after a tragedy, she decides to just go fuck off into the woods and live off on her own. And pretty much her notion was to just go there to die. But then she ends up befriending another dude who's around there who helps teach her how to live off the land. And she grows this new appreciation for life that she had lost out on. It's a really slow, just existential type of movie. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was really good. Robin Wright is really good in the movie. I believe she directed it also. She does a really good job here for a first-time director. Damien Bahir, I believe is how his name is pronounced, plays the guy that teaches her how to live off the land. He is a great actor too. I'm very happy that he is showing up in more movies. He was also in Godzilla vs. Kong, which we passed a dozen or so entries ago. I'm just as surprised as you to find that Zack Snyder's Justice League is sitting this high up on the list. But what can I say? He definitely went balls to the walls with this, and the longer runtime definitely helps every character, every plot line, everything in the long run. It does get a little too self-indulgent at times, but for the most part, this is one of the better superhero movies that DC has put out, and that's simply just because they let Zack Snyder realize his vision for this movie. Ben Affleck as Batman I've always really enjoyed him. He really brings the heat. Every character is just much better realized than this. Jason Momoa, Ezra Miller, Cyborg. He was pretty much the star of this movie, and the heart and the meat and potatoes. And it's insane that anybody took a look at the Whedon cut and was just like, why did we cut all this shit? Like, this is the heart and soul of this movie. And Gal Gadot is always beautiful. She is amazing as Wonder Woman. She really embodies that character. This movie was much better, like leagues, fucking better than the Whedon cut. And honestly, it's a shame that they're not going to let Snyder do more from this universe because the way he left it off, there was a lot of good threads to pull on. Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar is probably the silliest entry on this list. It's another movie that was insanely surprising to me. I never expected it would be this high. I thought I would hate it, but it was really, really funny. The main actors, Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo, I believe is her last name. They those characters that they created are like really funny and over the top and just so like hilariously Midwestern. And all the supporting characters are absolutely hilarious in it as well. Jamie Dornan and what's his name from New Girl, one of the Waynes. Everybody just really brings the heat on this and just makes like a really silly, stupid movie about these two Midwest girls that go down to Florida and end up getting into a crazy scheme that can threaten all of Florida, and they have to save the day. It is, I don't want to say more than that. Go watch this movie if you haven't. It is really funny. Finding Ohana is the modern day Goonies set in Hawaii. It follows this group as they try to find the treasure of Hawaii in hopes that they could use it to save their grandpa's house and stay in Hawaii where their culture is. It's a lot of fun. Some of the kids can be a little irritating at times because they try and shoehorn in modern day slang and the culture of kids these days. So some of the lines where they're like saying like shit like on fleek and all that crap can get really trying and annoying at times. But that's mostly because that's not my generation. But other than that, the kids are very cute with each other and finding the treasure. It's a really good take on Goonies. To make a modern Goonies, this is probably the best of the bunch that have tried it. Malcolm and Marie is a conversation movie that all takes place in a house after Malcolm has had the premiere of his new movie, and it follows him and his wife as they cover topic after topic, fight after fight, going about love, their journey together, their life, everything that they've been through, all the blood, sweat, and tears. It is a powerhouse acting movie. It is solely a movie that lives or dies based on its acting, and John David Washington and Zendaya really bring the fucking heat. Like, they are phenomenal actors, and it's amazing that John David Washington is as good as he is for as early into his career as he is. But I would imagine when your father is Denzel Washington, like, you're gonna bring the heat. The story there really isn't a story. It's mostly them just going from conversation to conversation. So really what carries the movie is the acting, because anything other than that, there really isn't anything else to go on. I guess maybe cinematography, but even that is like very low stakes. But the movie, based on acting alone, is one that is absolutely a must-see, and is, if they're both not nominated next year, it'll be an absolute disservice to their performances. And now we begin the top 10. The Best Picture winner of 2020, even though it came out in 2021, is Nomadland. It is a very well-made existential movie, very much like Land, where it's a very slow-paced existential film about like life, loss, the journey. It's very well made. The cinematography is phenomenal. Chloe Zhao as a director is very good. I can't wait to see what she does with Eternals. Really hoping that ends up being one of the better Marvel movies thanks to her direction. I enjoyed the movie a lot. I think it's very well made. I'll probably never watch it again. It's just one of those movies that like you watch and you're like, that was a very well made movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I liked everything about it. No need to ever watch it again. The Courier is the story of a British salesman who ends up being recruited by MI6 to help bring secrets back from Russia with the help of a spy that they have on the Russian military. It is a really good, tense thriller. Benedict Cumberbatch is amazing in it. I don't know the name of the Russian actor who plays the spy, but he is also really good in it. It is just a very good spy film. I really enjoy spy films. You don't get to see too many of them. So I'm always on board whenever they release one, between this, Bridge of Spies, Red Sparrow. Even though I didn't really like Red Sparrow that much, I just love spy movies, so I was still like, okay, that was decent. So Hollywood, more spy movies. The Father is a story of an old man who must deal with the fact that he has dementia and it's slowly slipping him away from reality. And it follows as he tries to hold on to that grip of reality. It is an incredibly well crafted movie. Anthony Hopkins is so fucking phenomenal in this movie. He's so deserved Best Actor. Even though I would have loved to have seen Chadwick Boseman get one, Anthony Hopkins absolutely deserved it. And it doesn't take anything away from Chadwick Boseman's legacy. I think so. He needed to win for this movie because The Father is fucking so good. It's such a good puzzle piece movie of trying to like pull all the pieces of all the timelines together and figure out where you are. It almost makes you feel like you are the main character and you're grappling with dementia along with him as you're trying to put the pieces together of this movie. It is such a good fucking movie, and if you haven't seen it, you absolutely must. Boss Level is our second looping timeline movie to hit here. This one is an action comedy starring Frank Grillo as he tries to put together the pieces of why he is stuck in this time loop and why all these assassins are trying to kill him and figure out just what the fuck is going on in his life to have made this happen. It is very fucking entertaining. The action scenes are great in it. It's one of Frank Grillo's better performances in a main role. He has a tendency when given the wrong material to not be as great, but I think that's more due to the directors and script that he's saddled with because he fires on all cylinders here. This movie is really freaking good. Mel Gibson is bananas in it as the bad guy who is behind all of this. It is just a really good fucking entertaining action movie, and I sorely needed that when this movie came out. Luca is Pixar's latest phenomenal film. They don't know how to make a bad movie. And obviously, while Luca is not going to hit the heights of, say, Inside Out or Soul or like some of their like top tier ones, there is no shame in releasing just a solidly great movie. And this is definitely one of those. It tells a story of a fish monster, sea monster, whatever this kid is, and he befriends a kid that is all alone on land. And the two of them decide to enter into a race in Italy that will win them a Vespa so that they could go and see the world and be best friends and do their thing. It is a really adorable movie. It's one of those movies you just turn your mind off, just sit back, just enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with releasing a movie like that. People seem to be hating on Pixar for not releasing like A+++ material every time, and it's an unrealistic thing. The fact that they've released almost 25 movies and really only one or two of them are any that you could say anything bad about just goes to show the level of talent that they have. In the Heights is a musical from Lin-Manuel Miranda of the story of a bunch of people living in Washington Heights as they are being gentrified out of their community. It is a really good freaking movie. I liked it a lot. It's very visually beautiful. The way that they shoot all the musical numbers is awesome. I love that they don't tether it to reality, and you'll get scenes where they're like there's like kaleidoscope colors coming in from like a tunnel. You'll get a scene with them dancing on the side of a building. Like I really love that they didn't bother tethering this to reality. The musical numbers are a lot of fun. There's nothing really that like none of the songs really hit me as iconic as other musicals, but all of them are like really well done. Everyone is really good in the movie. The main actor is really good. It's just a very fun summer blockbuster movie. Judas and the Black Messiah follows Lakeith Stanfield as he gets arrested by the cops and must now go undercover for them in the Black Panther Party and try and give them information that will help them take down its leader, who is played by Daniel Kaluuya. And it is a fucking phenomenal movie. It is just so good, so tense. Daniel Kaluuya is such a good fucking actor, and he absolutely deserves Best Supporting for that movie. He embodies that character that he plays so well. I can't think of his name of the real life guy that he plays right now, but he plays it to perfection. They show clips at the end of The Real Guy, and their cadence and mannerisms and just the way of speaking is so spot on. It's just phenomenal. The movie is just so good. deserved all the nominations and awards that it got, and it is a movie that you should absolutely see if you haven't. Coming in at the bronze place is the movie I Care a Lot. This is a movie that was very hit or miss for people. Obviously, it has hit phenomenally well for me. I love really dark crime thrillers that also have a bit of like dark comedy in it. So this movie really hit its mark for me. Rosamund Pike was absolutely splendidly evil in this movie, and she plays that part to perfection because you just want to see her get her fucking day in court by the end of this movie. And even though she does get it, not in the way that you think she would get it, this movie is just a whirlwind through and through. Peter Dinklage is great as the evil guy that is coming to get her. It is just a really good dark comedy. Raya and the Last Dragon. This is one of the best Disney movies that they've put out in like the last 10 years. They are just really hitting their stride right now, Disney Animation. They're really getting back to their heyday of the 90s. This movie is a lot of fun. It's a very interesting world. I love the story. The visuals are freaking incredible. Everything about this movie is a lot of fun. The side characters are great. It has a really fun story. It may drag a little in the beginning because it has to give so much exposition, and they honestly could cut out a bunch of that exposition and still maintain the pace of the movie. But it's a nitpick really, because the movie is still a lot of fun and it's visually splendid. So it's not so much of a detraction. So it didn't really ruin the movie too much for me. And taking the top spot, the best movie, in my opinion, that has come out so far in 2021 is A Quiet Place Part 2. The first Quiet Place was one of my favorite movies when it came out. This one, to me, is about on par the same as the first one. This movie is so phenomenally well done. John Krasinski is a hell of a writer-director. He really knows how to ape out the tension in these scenes. He's very Spielberg-esque. You can tell he did his homework with to direct this movie, because the way the shots shown sometimes is very Spielbergian, and I love it. It's very good. The opening scene where it shows day one is by far the best scene of the movie. It is fucking so thrilling and exciting and intense. The rest of the movie is also just as intense. The ending especially is really good. I love that they changed up the story, where the second one is essentially a coming of age story. And we're watching these two kids who must now step up and become heroes and wreck shit. And it is just phenomenal to watch by the end when those two kids finally get like their moment where they're going to be like, fuck it, man, I'm not running anymore. I'm facing these things. And they just throw down. It's such a good fucking movie. And I was really excited at first when they announced the third one, but I'm not so excited anymore because they announced that John Krasinski is not coming back. I only want A Quiet Place Part 3 if it is written and directed by John Krasinski. Otherwise, don't you fucking make another one. Unless it's a spinoff that has nothing to do with this family. That is the only way I'll accept your next one that's not written by John Krasinski or directed by him. So you better get your shit in line, Hollywood. You pay him whatever he wants to be paid. You let him take however long he needs to come up with a good story. But whatever you do, get his ass back. And that's my list. I know it's been a long journey to get here. That was a hell of a lot of fucking movies. Obviously, it's hard to condense so much about a film, talking about it without going over. So if I went over longer than I wanted to, it is what it is. You just got to deal with it. Obviously, you could skip to later or whatever part of the video. You could probably have already turned it off for all I fucking know. But there's nothing I can do about that. But for any of you that decided to stick around, or if you just cut to this spot waiting for it, I don't really care. I appreciate it anyway. Here is your digital code for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You got your double codes right there. I don't know if there's anything here on the back, but just in case there is, it might be a survey. If you want to do the survey, knock yourself out. But there is the code for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So you can go ahead, grab that. Make sure to write down in the comments if you grabbed it so that nobody else tries and takes it. And that's our journey. It's going to be a hell of a back half of 2021. There are a lot of really good movies still left to come out. I expect this list to be shaken to its core. I expect this top 10 to really shake to its core. I think the only thing that might have a chance of staying in place is A Quiet Place Part 2, but that Don't really think that might hold up with a lot of water because we got Dune coming out. I am really excited for Dune, and I honestly think Dune might be the only movie that has a chance of taking the #1 spot from A Quiet Place. But I can see a bunch of other great movies coming out that might make its way onto the top 10 that might knock a bunch of these movies out. But only time will tell. So, until next time, adventure on.